This video is one part of a two-part series. Feel free to check out the other video in this short little DC vs. Marvel set of topics.
Superman, where are you now? The Man of Steel, power.
Superman?
This is the world we live in.
The character of Superman has come a long way since Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster first introduced him in 1938. But in that time, Clark Kent has more or less upheld the many consistent traits that define him. Certain adaptations may have had him more complicated, or simply have a slightly different personality. But, excluding the obvious attempts to make a different Superman altogether, the character of Clark Kent has remained intact. There's a reason one of his most famous catchphrases is,
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
I love the character of Superman. Superman is inspiring. He's a role model and someone you can always count on to have your back. And, let's be honest, he's overpowered. This meme really is accurate. So after checking out Man of Steel for the first time since 2013, I must say, I was quite taken aback. Going in, I knew the film was regarded as one of, if not the best in the DCEU. Yet, once the credits started rolling, I thought, this is the one people liked? This movie was abysmal. I couldn't believe I had heard so much positive reception about it. Then, to ensure accurate critiques and consistency, I watched it 2 more times. I have now seen this movie 3 times in very close proximity. Needless to say, I'm quite fresh on it. But that's not where the story ends, you see. What inspired me to make this video wasn't just Man of Steel in isolation, no. It was after I saw the original Superman film from 1978. Seeing how that film portrays Superman and how Man of Steel does was night and day. Now, a huge disclaimer. The 1978 Superman movie has many problems. It's actually far from the best Superman content out there. Yet, it remains a classic film. Why? Well, I theorize it's in part to how Richard Donner and these screenwriters specifically handle Clark Kent and his story. Because, in my personal opinion, pretty much everything outside of Clark's story in that film is not that great. Unfortunately, that's mostly Lex Luthor. The entire third act as well is quite a disaster. Literally. Everything to do with Clark himself, though? Spot on. I mean, it makes sense that would happen when one of your writers also wrote The Godfather Parts 1 and 2. I also watched this movie 3 times in close proximity, just like Man of Steel, to make sure I knew these films very well before comparing them. And that is exactly what I'll be doing in this video. I came to the conclusion that Zack Snyder and David S. Goyer simply do not understand who Superman is and what he represents. This video will be a direct comparison of the character and backstory of Clark Kent both in Superman the movie from 1978 and Man of Steel from 2013. I'll say it once more just in case. If, from this video, you are inspired to watch or rewatch Superman the movie, do not get the wrong idea and think I'm claiming things I'm not. My claim is that the film handles Superman specifically in one of the best ways I've ever seen, and I want to compare that with the assassination that is Man of Steel. I will also be using content from Superman 2 from 1980 to compare some things with Zod and Friends. It won't make up much, but I think it's still well worth the mention since Zod was a villain in one of the original movies. Also, any points that aren't about character or backstory, like plot critiques, are looked at separately. Finally, after such a long introduction, let's explore the wrongdoings of Man of Steel and the absolute failure of portraying Superman. This is what Man of Steel could have been. To kick things off, let's get some things out of the way with both films. Nitpick section! First, Superman, then Man of Steel. Let's go! There are definitely hits and misses with special effects. Yes, it was 1978, but wow, are some of these hard to look at. Cal's ship literally looks like the gift Manny gave to Greg in Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Bye, Frisky. So long now. Bye.
Bye! Mommy! Frisky was stuck in the tree. This man swooped out of the sky and gave him to me. Haven't I told you to stop telling lies?
Was there child abuse after that cat is saved? The classic flying scene is wonderful. Until we get to the inner monologue.
Here I am, like a kid out of school, holding hands with a god. I'm a fool.
What is this?
Just a friend from another star.
It's horrible.
You to me?
She's actually reciting poetry. This is so painful.
I know who you are.
Oh god. This line by Ursa is ridiculous.
They need machines to fly.
Thank you now.
Yeah, you don't? Okay, how was Clark able to be pushed by this guy in the fishing boat? This is Superman we're talking about. Later in the bar scene, we even see another guy try to push Clark, and it goes much more as you'd expect. So why the difference? This Pulitzer Prize line by Lois is so cringe. Ugh.
We're talking about I'm a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter.
There's no Jimmy Olsen in this movie whatsoever. The Jesus imagery throughout this film is way too blatant. Like, wow, Zack, you ever heard of subtlety? Clark is reading Plato? Seriously? Again, Zack, subtle.
We managed to retrofit the Phantom projector into a hyperdrive.
Turning the Phantom projector into a hyperdrive sounds like some contrived bull. Yeah, that's not how fire works. Why did Martha look at the barn? Why? Ah, yes, a black hole. A black hole that is consuming everything around it, including rubble and cars. Yet, somehow, Lois Lane is not only able to withstand that force, but be the only single thing to do so. She is falling away from the black hole through no choice or power of her own. Well, except the film's largest plot armor. Twice!
He saved us.
They say as they're standing in the largest graveyard the world has ever seen.
You know they say it's all downhill after the first kiss.
I'm sorry, what? Who says that? Not to mention how inaccurate that is. I'm not sure you'd want to pursue a relationship with someone who says that.
You're a monster, Zod. And I'm gonna stop you.
Ooh, another typical bad DC line.
Then I will destroy you!
Okay, this looks really goofy.
Where did you train? On a farm?
There are a bit too many LexCorp cameos for it to feel natural. This scene.
Courtside seats to the game tonight. What do you say?
I say you should go back to trolling the intern pool. You'll probably have more luck. Sorry.
Courtside?
Don't.
Alright. Perry and Steve tried everything they could to save Jenny's life. She was trapped in rubble during the world engine destruction and was going to die if it hadn't been shut down in time. Perry and Steve stayed with her and were willing to die together once they realized they couldn't pull her out. They were going to sacrifice their lives just so she wouldn't die alone. And then, in the very last scene, Steve casually asked her out to a basketball game. And she... what's this? She laughs at him! She thinks it's just so absurd to go out with him. What? He tried to save your life, and when he couldn't, he was going to die with you. And you can't even show some basic decency? Look, I'm not saying she needs to marry the guy. I'm just saying it's the least she could do to show some appreciation. Her reaction is what makes this worse. If she had politely declined his treat to the basketball game, it probably would have been eyebrow raising. But no, she has to laugh at the mere idea of going out for a night with him, after all he did for her. Wow. Just wow. And the movie treats this like it's a funny joke. It totally doesn't realize what it's saying. A common theme we'll see, I guess. That's it for the nitpicks. Now for the content you came for. My first point is not going to be my best, because while I back it up with reasoning, it really is subjective. With that said, I think Krypton was done better in the original. Quick pause for clarification. Whenever I mention the original, that means Superman the movie from 1978. When I mention the new one, or film or movie, that means Man of Steel from 2013. Back to the video. To me, there's something about the Kryptonians being so far advanced that it isn't even comprehensible to us that fills it with awe and wonder. The best example I can give is in the Steven Spielberg movie AI. If you've seen it and remember the ending, I would hope you understand what I'm talking about. It's like if you brought modern smartphones to ancient Mesopotamia. They literally would not be able to conceive the technology, and it would be actual magic to them. That's what I like about Krypton to Earth in the original. They use this vague crystal technology where we don't even recognize it as technology. It just seems like magic because that's how unimaginably advanced they are. It truly displays their success. Whereas in Man of Steel, Krypton has noticeable sci-fi tech, like advanced ships, hologram things, blaster rifles. Okay, I'll give you the codex. And, freezers. See how all of that was stuff I could point out and understand? Compare that with whatever that is, and how this works at all. The Kryptonian world of technology in Man of Steel is something I could see humanity on Earth progressing to. Sure, it's incredibly advanced, but not unreachable. As I said, this is subjective. You may very well prefer the lighter science fiction of the new film, and that's okay. I think the entire Krypton sequence is better than the original for even more reasons, though. Another is that the Council of Elders feels much more human than in the new film. In the new one, they almost seem like mannequins, they're so fake. They barely even say anything. But in the original, they have real debate, show emotion, and clearly have a history with Jor-El based on their dialogue. The destruction of Krypton is done better still in the original, I'd say. While it certainly drags on too long, and it's a perfect example of special effects not holding up, the sequence shows us Kryptonians being affected by all the destruction. We see them run and scream in terror as their homes are crumbling around them. The new film just wraps that all right up and snaps away. We see Lara die from it, and that's it. It just blows up after that. I'm not expecting the near my god to thee sequence from Titanic, but a little observation would be nice. Hey, the first plot critique. How exactly did Lara hide her pregnancy? If Kal-El is the first natural birth in centuries, and natural birth is considered heresy, they would have had to keep her pregnancy top secret. So did she just stay in the house the whole time? Is that normal for them? Does she not work? Do they never have visitors? How did they get away with this? Seems minor, I know, but it does kind of push the plot forward, so... Speaking of natural birth, the entire motivation for Jor and Lara to have Kal naturally was so that his DNA wouldn't be decided by the Codex. It means he wouldn't be designed for a specific occupation. The elves wanted him to forge his own destiny, as they put it.
And he will be free. Free to forge his own destiny.
Great, I love it. I'm on board. Except, Then Jor-El completely contradicts that motivation for the rest of the film. I'm going to be jumping quite ahead here, so bear with me. Already in this sequence, we followed Jor-El stealing the Codex and planting all of its info into Cal's cells. A side note, how does that work? Like, cells constantly die and new ones are born, so does it somehow travel to all the new ones? By doing this, he's tying Krypton's fate to Cal, which means Cal isn't choosing his own destiny already. But I digress. Jor-El specifically tells Clark later on in the movie how he sent the Codex with him so that he could build a new Krypton. He says again even later that he wanted Clark to be a bridge between two peoples, referring to Kryptonians and Earthlings.
We wanted you to learn what it meant to be human first. So that one day, when the time was right, you could be the bridge between two peoples.
So there you have it. Jor-El gave Clark a very clear mission to accomplish on Earth. There is no intention there of Clark forging his own destiny. He explicitly wants Clark to rebuild Krypton and connect it with Earth. Jor-El is a liar. It feels like I didn't spend enough time pointing out how big of a deal this is. It changes the entire relationship between Jor-El and Clark. There's not much else to say, but it's an enormous plotline in the movie, and it doesn't make sense. Oh, wait, none of them do. Back to Krypton. This won't be the last time I'll be bringing up the Codex. So it's established that every Kryptonian is designed by the Codex and born in these weird underwater bubbles. No one can choose what they want to be in life, it is all predetermined. I'll hammer the point in again. You are specifically designed for your occupation. Jor-El should have lost this fight in a second. He does lose, yes, from not paying attention. Until then, they are evenly matched. Need I remind you what each of their occupations are? General Zod, that should give it away, is a military commander. He was bred for battle. Combat and military tactics are his sole purpose. He had trained his entire life before entering the military and hasn't left since. Jor-El, on the other hand, is a scientist. A scientist. He can be in shape, there's nothing wrong with that. But you're telling me he can fight Zod one-on-one? The fact that Jor-El has any combat skills at all is more than enough to question, but then you add that he can handle the top military commander? Are you kidding me? This fight should have been over before it started. There is no way Jor-El is evenly matched with General Zod. That's bollocks. Zod and friends are captured though and are sentenced to the Phantom Zone. We got to see this both in Superman the movie and Superman 2. It was wacky, absolutely, but at least you can see why that would be a punishment. They are trapped in this thing. They are completely conscious and awake, and the Phantom Square Zone thingy just floats on forever in space. That seems pretty torturous to me, a life sentence for sure. Man of Steel doesn't play that way. Instead, our villains are cryogenically frozen before going into the Phantom Zone. So, how exactly is that serving time? They're not conscious. They're frozen. When they wake up, it won't feel like any time has passed for them. It would be like the judge telling you to close your eyes for a second, and then boom, that's it, you served your sentence. Like, what? Best prison ever? You don't even experience it. What a stupid sentence. Finally, I'm done talking about Krypton. Now on to the early life section. I'll have to technically go out of order here with Man of Steel since it doesn't follow Clark's life chronologically, but instead jumps back and forth. Superman the movie goes chronologically, so that will be the guide. We start off with Clark arriving on Earth, and this discovery scene is phenomenal. Clark lands on a Kansas farm owned by Jonathan and Martha Kent. They are, obviously, a bit spooked by the spaceship carrying a little kid that just crashed from the sky. For some unexplained, but mentioned, reason, the Kents never had any children. The Martha keeps suggesting they should keep and raise the child, since clearly he's not from around here and his parents are unknown. Jonathan, however, keeps resisting and thinks it's a bad idea. This little dynamic between them is great. What makes them silently agree to keep Clark, though, is when he displays his first use of powers by holding up the pickup truck that was about to fall on Jonathan. And thus we see Clark is quite different. Over in 2013, we see... Oh, there is no comparison. The scene doesn't exist. We never see how they react. Oh. What we do get, though, is what I actually will admit is a fantastic scene. The earliest childhood scene of Clark in the new film is when he is in elementary school and he starts getting his sight and hearing powers. Not sure why it took them this long, but I'll just chalk it up to growth. His senses are overwhelming him. We get to see what those powers are like without control. Clark doesn't know how to react or what to do. There's too much going on for his senses to handle. Then we get a great moment where his mom is the one who teaches him, unknowing to her, how to control that power. Through his mother's comfort, Clark is able to narrow his powers to what he desires from them. I think that scene is wonderful. But, as I will touch on later, it is basically completely ruined by Zod and friends when they arrive on Earth. It becomes a major contradiction. I'll skip that for now, though. I appreciate in general how this movie shows more of Clark's experience with his powers growing up than in the original. But that, unfortunately, leads us into a long discussion over the aftermath of the bus scene. I have no complaints about the incident itself. The bus almost gets in an accident, drives off a bridge into water, and Clark uses his powers to save everyone from drowning. Great, love it. But then we get to witness Jonathan Kent's reaction to all of this.
I just wanted to help.
I know you did, but we talked about this. Right? Right? We talked about this. You have... Oh, Clark, you have to keep this side of yourself a secret.
Why is Jonathan mad? So Jonathan is upset with Clark because by saving those kids, Clark revealed his supernatural abilities. Being worried about people finding out your son's powers? I agree. Legitimate concern since aliens are not yet known to exist. I understand. Jonathan is right when he talks about how the world will react and all that. But, and a big but, all of that goes out the window when you're talking about the lives of an entire class of children. Does Clark's father really have no moral compass? You would rather have Clark let those kids die to protect his identity? Are you serious? Jonathan Kent would never say or think this. Clark absolutely did the right thing here. Not to mention, don't you think it would have been just a bit odd if every kid except Clark died? Well, that's quite the coincidence there. I think people would be curious how he got out when no one else could. Additionally, the trauma he'd experienced watching his classmates drown and knowing he could have prevented that, but chose not to since his daddy would be upset. This entire situation is insane. Jonathan is instilling the worst lesson for Clark here. He should be exclaiming how proud he is of his son for saving his whole class. He should be praising his heroism. Instead, we get...
What was I supposed to do? Just let him die?
Maybe.
Maybe? This leads to good old Jonathan showing Clark the ship he arrived on Earth in, confirming his alien origins. There's honestly not a bad conversation between father and son here. But two things. One is that it immediately follows the insanity I just described, so it's kind of difficult to think of Jonathan as a good father despite this talk. And two is that, get this, you ready? Jonathan states he took the little key thingy to a metallurgist at Kansas State University for analysis. The metallurgist reported back that the material it was made of didn't exist on the periodic table. Whoa, cool, right? A neat way to prove that Clark is from another planet. Except, hold on. Didn't we just have an entire conversation about Clark needing to keep his identity such a secret that he shouldn't even save drowning children? Now you're telling me Jonathan took a piece from Clark's alien ship over to a scientist? With a discovery like that, there is no way that that scientist would keep quiet about it. A new element? The dude was handed a new element. But we're just supposed to believe that he was like, huh, neat, and gave it back and never talked about it again. I don't buy it. That was extremely reckless of Jonathan for wanting to keep something like that a secret. Luckily, he presented it to the most apathetic scientist ever. Unbelievable. Let's go back to 78 for a little bit and explore how the original presents Clark's upbringing. This movie does a much better job at displaying the contrast between the advanced alien civilization that Clark comes from and the rural and classic small-town American life of Smallville he was raised in. What's amazing about the origins of Superman is that if he would have been raised poorly, human history could have gone much different with an evil overlord Superman.
For us!
Clark, and thereby Earth, won the lottery because of where he landed. Clark growing up on a family farm with 2 loving parents to teach him good morals was the perfect scenario for him. Smallville, Kansas was also the best place for him to land, so he could live a quiet life with acres of land to explore his powers and not worry about the stresses that could cause him to use them negatively. Clark was able to live a normal American kid life, which allowed him to be the great man he is. All of this is shown well in the film, though it probably helps that it takes place in the 50s. We see that Clark experiences normal teenage problems, crushes, bullies, etc. People could tell he had something different about him, but no one would have anything to extrapolate past suspicion. We also get to see why he can't play sports. Hey, wait a minute.
Come on! Pick up the pace! Come on! No! Pull back! Patient! Slow down just a little bit!
Overall, I think this sequence is a blast to watch. I really feel the Smallville vibe, if you know what I mean. Next, tragedy strikes.
Hey, look! There's Clark! Clark?
How'd you get here so fast?
I ran.
Ran, huh? Cool. Told you's an oddball. Let's get out of here.
We get one of the best written scenes in the film. Jonathan and Clark are bonding because Jonathan can tell Clark was getting a bit showy with his powers. He's giving great life advice, being a great dad, teaching his son right. But then the unavoidable happens. Jonathan Kent dies of a heart attack, right there and then. This is a huge learning moment for Clark. His father's sudden and natural death shows that, despite Clark's godly abilities, he can't save everyone. His powers couldn't help him save his own father. It's a defining moment for Clark, one that shapes the rest of his life, especially since it's what motivates him to search for answers over his origin, which leads him to become Superman as we know him. Jonathan Kent dying of a heart attack is a usual staple in Superman stories. It's pretty much always the fate of him. That doesn't mean that deviating from that is inherently bad, but it does mean you have to be careful. As you might have guessed, Snyder and Goyer were not careful. Jonathan Kent's death scene in Man of Steel is dreadful. There is no reason he had to die. Alright, so a twister. Well, it is Kansas, so at least this is an entirely plausible scenario for our characters to be in. However, our characters act in complete stupidity. First off, an overpass is not, I repeat, not a place you want to be during a twister. In fact, you're actually increasing your chances of dying by being under one. Where else could they have gone? I don't know. Their cars, maybe? There really isn't any ideal place for them to be. But the overpass is actually the most deadly, so don't go there. Sources in the description. Second, why couldn't Clark get the dog? Why on earth did Jonathan insist on saving the dog? Let Clark get it. Not only would there be no risk to him, but he would also be more effective at it, thereby ensuring no one would even think he was surviving more than a normal human would be able to. But because of this idiotic choice, Jonathan puts himself in more danger. Jonathan does save the dog, but at the cost of getting his ankle injured, so now he can't walk back to everyone else. This is where Clark should have saved him, but Jonathan actually tells him not to save him. Clark lets his father die. Let me say that again. Clark lets his father die, unlike a certain heart attack that Clark is powerless against. Now, I want to clarify, I don't hold this against Clark. Mostly. He trusted his dad's judgment in a quick moment. He was simply listening to what his father wanted. Still an awful choice, but a grounded one. It's Jonathan who I have the problem with. It's the bus full of drowning kids all over again. I argue Clark's abilities would not have been revealed if he had saved Jonathan in this scene. It likely wouldn't even have raised suspicion if Clark had saved him. Let me explain the atmosphere. This is a natural disaster occurring where everyone is panicking and in a frenzy only focused on survival. Everyone's adrenaline is pumping, and senses and details are not anywhere near peak performance. If Clark had simply just used a little bit of his super speed to run over, grab his dad, and run back, no one would have questioned it. Think how subtle that power use would be. He would just appear to be a really fast runner in a life or death situation for someone he loves. How does that reveal he's an alien? People would so easily accept that he had an adrenaline rush to get the boost he needed to rescue his father. That's if they even noticed. It is not unreasonable whatsoever to imagine an alternate set of events where Clark did just that and no one would have died. Also, Clark is, a bit jacked. No one would have raised an eyebrow if he had carried Jonathan on his back or something. The point is, this was all so stupid, and Jonathan Kent is an utter moron in this movie. The only good scene he has is when he talks to Clark after bullies were messing with him, and he was reading Plato. Good detail with the fence post, by the way. That little conversation was great. Why couldn't we have had more of those scenes? We got stuck with the suicidal child killer instead. Jonathan's death was worthless and makes Clark look really bad. What a train wreck of a character they made Jonathan Kent into. Way to make a terrible father figure for Clark. Martha Kent must have carried teaching good values to Clark, because he did not end up turning out bad despite his awful father. Though there are a few things I will touch on that the true Superman would never do, unlike this misunderstood version by Snyder. One of these things happens right before Jonathan's death. Clark and Jonathan are arguing a normal argument like any father and son. But then Clark pulls out a
Your family, not mine. I don't even know why I'm listening to you. You're not my dad. You're just some guy who found me in a field.
Yeah, Clark would never say that. This goes for Martha and Laura L. as well. Trust me, I'm not missing the point. I get that they're doing the whole orphan thing. I really do. In this situation, though, it doesn't work. This is not who Clark is, and not how he would view the world. By this point in his life, Clark does know he's adopted. He knows he comes from a mysterious planet elsewhere. But that's it. It ends there. I know I say it as if that news would be insignificant. That's not what I mean. I mean that his Smallville life with Jonathan and Martha Kent as his parents is all he's known. They would have treated him like their son, and he would have treated them like his parents. Actually, he would see them as his parents. They've raised him his entire life. They may not be his biological parents, but my oh my are they his true parents. He's who he is because of them. Now you want me to believe he would think lesser of the Kents because he learned he has different biological parents who he's never met and knows nothing about, including why they sent him to Earth? I'm sorry, I don't accept that. This isn't Clark. This movie does follow similarly to the original though, in that Jonathan's death is the inciting incident to Clark becoming Superman. The execution of those journeys is leagues apart, however. Let's explore, shall we? In the original, Clark is still grieving over his father's passing. He struggles with leaving Martha. Clark is clearly finding it hard to say goodbye to his mother and his home. The only home he's ever known. Keep that in mind, I'm not done with it yet. But because of the kryptonite crystal, calling to him, he knows it's the right thing to do. He needs to discover who he is. I'm assuming the crystal is somehow guiding him, because, I'll be honest, I'm not sure how he knew where to go to find the Fortress of Solitude. Still better than how Clark finds it in the new one, but I'll get to that in a minute. The fortress doesn't actually construct itself until Clark activates it with the crystal. I guess I like that better than it just sitting there waiting to be discovered by anyone, but I also don't know of other adaptations or even the original way this was done, so it might be one of the worst ways for all I know. Either way, what comes after is great. This is where Clark meets Jor-El for the first time. A pre-recorded hologram of him, that is. After Jor-El's initial presentation, Clark is able to learn everything he can from him. For years, Clark isolates himself in the fortress, just learning and learning and learning. He learns all about Krypton, Earth, his powers, and the values and guidance Jor-El gives him. It's during these years that Clark officially becomes Superman. At exactly the hour mark in the movie, we see him in the iconic suit for the first time, and flying for the first time. Krypton and his backstory take up a whole third of the movie. By the way, this movie is 3 hours long. This leaves another 2 whole hours of content for post-backstory Superman. Unfortunately, that last hour doesn't make it worth it. Those first 2 hours are where the character of Clark Kent really shines though. Following his new transformation, we follow Clark's new normal life. He heads to Metropolis with a new job at the Daily Planet. This switch from Smallville to Metropolis serves as a representation for the new Clark. These scenes are what gives us some of the best of Christopher Reeve's portrayal. Once again, we observe Clark in his normal life through job struggles, relationship struggles, and his social skills. I put skills in quotes because it's all an act. It's this act why I prefer Christopher Reeve over Henry Cavill. Clark is phenomenal at acting clumsy and awkward and overall just a dork. He completely separates his two identities so as to not draw the obvious suspicion that would arise. His body movements, his speech patterns, his posture, his demeanor are all in total opposition between Clark Kent and Superman. Christopher Reeve distinguishes Clark and Superman. On the chance that someone thinks they look similar, they will doubt themselves because of how different they act.
What's the hurry? I mean, seeing as you happen to be in Niagara Falls. Happen to be in Niagara Falls, and Clark is not around as usual. You're what I thought was Superman.
Sorry.
This is really embarrassing.
I feel like this is going to be a hot take, but here goes. I love Henry Cavill as much as the next guy. He has a great personality, he's truly passionate about his work, he seems super nice. I get it, I agree. Unfortunately, that doesn't translate to his acting ability. He's just not that great of an actor in my opinion. This is most clear as Clark Kent. I'll admit, as Superman, he's not bad. Still not as inspiring or cheery as I'd prefer, but he gets the job done. I really don't have a big enough issue with him as Superman to think he should be recast. He's good enough as is. It's when he's Clark Kent that I think he's awful. You see, he doesn't play them any differently. There aren't any distinguishing features. In the DCEU, Clark Kent and Superman are the exact same person. I mean, I know literally they are, but you know what I mean. Personality-wise, Henry Cavill doesn't play Clark any different, and it makes scenes when he's with anyone from the Daily Planet a joke. There is no way they wouldn't recognize him. Anyone in Clark Kent's life would be able to figure it out. It's embarrassing how little he tries to hide his identity. It makes it even worse in BVS when he makes a name for himself as a reporter. Phew, I got through the spiciest take in the video. Back to Christopher Reeve. I'm gonna speed a bit faster through these comments as this video is already really long. So, it's nice to see how much of a personality Jimmy Olsen has. He is a memorable character because of it. Perry White, classic movie boss. I like it. And no complaints in the new one either. Both were well cast. In the original, we actually develop our romances, unlike our successor. Lois Lane gets to see firsthand how sweet Clark is.
Excuse me, Mr. White. I was wondering if perhaps you could arrange for half my salary to be sent to this address on a weekly basis.
Your bookie, right?
A what?
Don't tell me. He sends a check every week to his sweet gray-haired old mother.
Actually, she's silver-haired.
He treats everyone with utmost kindness and sincerity, even when it comes to a mugger. This scene is amazing. The perfect display of not only the distinguishing between Clark and Superman, but also how Clark is putting on an act. While Clark and Lois are getting mugged by a guy in an alley, Clark is trying to reason with the man, reflecting on morals and life choices and what the guy could do instead. Poor, innocent, and naive Clark, right? That's what it looks like to Lois. Clark is clearly not a fighter. Plus, because of his body language, it would appear Clark is more scared than Lois. He's quite cowardice, in fact. Lois acts much braver and kicks the mugger, but he shoots at them and runs away. If Clark was a normal human, Lois would have died right there in that alley. But Clark secretly catches the bullet midair, protecting Lois and bringing no harm to himself, since he's invulnerable. He plays this off too, acting like the mugger missed and he just fainted. This is equally genius because it hides that he caught the bullet and makes him look even weaker. He doesn't always hide his powers though. Not a few seconds later, he discreetly uses his X-ray vision to describe the exact contents of Lois's purse, which leaves her confused and him looking mysterious. Tall, dark, and handsome, am I right, ladies? Clark further adds intrigue and mystery by his slip of the use of the word swell. Clark grew up in the 50s and then disappeared from society until the 70s. Needless to say, he's a bit behind on slang. Speaking of lines, this movie has a few classics that just don't compare to Man of Steel. Like in Superman's debut appearance, for example.
I've got you.
You've got me! Who's got you?
Or,
some people can read War and Peace and come away thinking it's a simple adventure story. Others can read the ingredients on a chewing gum wrapper and unlock the secrets of the universe.
And, well, this isn't a classic line, but, maybe I'm too easy. This gets me every time.
Otis, take the gentleman's cape.
I don't think he wants me to, Mr. Luthor.
What does Man of Steel do between Clark's childhood and him becoming Superman? We get an unintelligent, somewhat morally questionable nomad. To start, I have to unfortunately circle back to Jonathan's identity philosophy. At this point in the movie, Clark has not revealed Superman to the world, which means he's still following the let drowning kids die to not show your powers mindset. Yet, he entirely risks his identity saving the men from the burning oil rig. This is a man who came out of nowhere, is on fire, is not affected by said fire, and rips open a sealed metal door with his bare hands. Luckily, the fire follows PG-13 guidelines and didn't burn his pants. In case someone misunderstands this, I support Clark's decision to save these men. I am simply following what Jonathan Kent explained and what Clark followed. Yes, he followed it. That's why his dad is dead. It doesn't make sense for him to do this in that context. You're telling me that when Superman arrived on the scene, his face plastered all over the news, that not one of his former fishing pals or any of the men saved from the oil rig connected his face to the oil rig event and told the news they know who Superman is. That doesn't seem likely. That's his first act of stupidity. His second is after this guy pours a drink on his head and fails to shove him. What Clark could do here is be much more subtle, like running slightly faster than normal, and either toss this guy down or forcefully remove him from the diner. Much more sensible, low attention, and not morally questionable. When I say low attention, I mean compared to this. Are you kidding me? You just made yourself so much more high profile by doing this. No human can pull this off. This would be investigated. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Even worse is the vengeful temper this paints Clark with. This makes him look way worse than if he had just taken the guy out of the diner. Look, the guy is obviously no upstanding citizen. I think we can all agree that the dude's actions in this scene are reprehensible and shouldn't be repeated. What I'm not quite sure on is whether that means this is an even punishment. Clark just destroyed that man's livelihood. If that truck belongs to a company, you bet he's in thousands of dollars in trouble now. If it's his own truck, he's still in thousands of dollars in trouble now, and out of a job in both situations. What were you thinking, Clark? Oh yeah, he also steals some people's clothes. I personally can get past this one based on his options, but stealing is still stealing, so take that as you will. Some hero, huh? Let's finally get into some plot critiques, yeah? On Clark's mission to discover who he is, he has to discover the Fortress of Solitude. It's kind of a staple. While I do have a problem with how the original does it, it's nowhere near as bad as in the new film. Like, wow. Especially if you accept a reasonable argument as I gave earlier. Though that was utter speculation, and nothing more. As Clark is merrily working away as a busboy, a couple of military men are discussing an anomaly that has been discovered and is currently being studied. This anomaly, as we find out, is the Fortress of Solitude. Are you kidding me? Clark finds the Fortress of Solitude, the place that enables him to become Superman, ultimately changing his life and the world around him, because he overheard a random conversation that happened to occur at this point in time, at this location on Earth, to the single person who needed to hear it, and it's about something from a different location on the planet. Wow, wow, wow. The mightiest of conveniences. What an unbelievable, stupendous, perfect coincidence. Oh, I forgot. Goyer is a professional screenwriter, and I'm not, so therefore my point is invalid, right? That's how that works. Anyway, back to the story. Oh my, another coincidence! Lois Lane happens to arrive at the anomaly at the same time as Clark. This script is looking stronger by the minute. Even better, yet again, to move the plot forward, because Goyer is stellar at doing that, Lois happens to snap a picture, which she can also impossibly zoom in on, right as Clark is making his way to the ship. Of course that happens that way. To make matters worse, Lois is not wearing enough layers to protect herself from the cold. The fact that her face is uncovered is laughable. She would almost immediately get frostbite. Colonel Hardy explicitly states that it reaches -40 degrees Fahrenheit during the night. -40! She would die of hypothermia.
Well, what can I say? I get writer's block if I'm not wearing a flak jacket.
I guess when she says flak jacket, she means plot armor. The best plot armor, it would seem. As bad as this movie is, man are the special effects refreshing compared to the original. Those laser eyes look fantastic. Watch this. So this machine, not kryptonite, is able to hurt Clark on Earth. This thing penetrates his skin. He's bleeding. That's how insane this machine is. But then, Miss Flak Jacket plot armor comes in and isn't immediately killed by it. What? How? This thing was able to injure Superman, but Lois just gets thrown back a few feet with a similar cut as literal Superman. What is this movie? Also, a quick note about kryptonite. I think it makes a lot more sense on a crystallized planet as opposed to whatever this place is. Super minor, doesn't really matter, but I thought about it and I'm curious what you think. We're gonna skip ahead a bit to when Clark meets the hologram Jor-El for the first time. Clark asks a legitimate question.
Why didn't you come with me?
Jor-El's response is, well, quite lacking.
We couldn't, Cal. No matter how much we wanted to. No matter how much we loved you. Your mother, Lara, and I were a product of the failures of our world as much as Zod was. Tied to its fate.
What? What a stupid reason. We're tied to Krypton's fate? Says who? So what? To me, it sounds like something Goyer couldn't figure out how to explain. Tied to its fate? Give me a break. The fate of Krypton. There's a lot to unpack here. Jor-El explains it both to the Council of Elders when he's alive and to Clark when they first meet. According to him, Krypton was a flourishing civilization. They sought to expand and did so through galactic colonization, establishing Kryptonian outposts and harvesting resources from the new colonies. Then, this is where it gets confusing. He says, in this order,
artificial population control was established. The outposts and space exploration were abandoned. We exhausted our natural resources.
As a result, they tried to harvest Krypton's core, which led to it becoming unstable and blew the planet up. That order is what makes me unsure. Is he saying that the population control and the abandoning of other worlds led to the exhaustion of resources? If so, how does that make any sense? Why would they abandon the outposts? And if you think, obviously that's not what he meant, the resource exhaustion led to those other two things. I would agree, that seems more logical. So then why did he say it in that order? Do you know what makes even less sense? His solution to the Council of Elders.
Well, look to the stars. Like our ancestors did. There are habitable worlds within reach.
His solution to the Council of Elders is to seek other worlds. What now? Jor-El claims there are habitable worlds within reach. So that means Kryptonians are incompetent and didn't use up all their resources since other worlds are so easily accessible. In which case makes their core harvesting decision miles worse. Jor-El is essentially saying that Krypton abandoned their space exploration prematurely. How would they have let that happen? They were so desperate for resources that they harvested the core of their own planet, but didn't think to check for more habitable worlds which exist nearby according to Jor-El? Is this a joke? What on Krypton was Krypton thinking? The entire reasoning behind Krypton's demise makes no sense in this adaptation. Kryptonians would have to have been absolutely brain dead to make these choices. Hey, I like the new suit. I talk about this portion of the movie in my previous video on Iron Man. These two videos are technically a series, so if you haven't seen that one, I highly recommend checking it out since they complement each other well. Man of Steel is to DC what Iron Man is to Marvel, although, as you'll gather from these two videos, that superficial similarity is all they have in common. Iron Man could nearly be considered a masterpiece. It is such a well-written film with heart and true character. Remember how Iron Man actually saves people? As in, he's a superhero?
Power reduced to 19%.
Yeah, Man of Steel really drops the ball with that one. I'll give you the bus children, obviously, but other than just Lois Lane, who does he save? I mean, really, he saves this guy, but if this movie actually followed the most basic of physics, this man would have died from the impact alone. Look at this scene in Iron Man 2 when Tony slows down first before saving Pepper. It's almost as if the director understood how momentum works. Not here, not in this film. Superman can snatch you up in the middle of his race with the Flash and nothing would change. To add insult to injury, Superman didn't even take the man anywhere safe. He just plopped him right in front of him and went back to fighting the other Kryptonians. For all we know, this guy died 2 seconds later because of the fight. You still want to say 2 to 3 instances of rescuing is more than enough to show he saves people? Okay, fine. Then those are made null and void due to how much death Superman causes in this film. That knocks those instances out of the water. Not convinced he caused massive death? Stay tuned, we'll get there. Hey, we now know this is Martian Manhunter, so that causes some major problems. Like, why doesn't he do anything during these movies? Seriously, he could help out the most, only second to Superman. Bro, there's a world engine currently killing millions of people, and will kill all of humanity if not stopped. Maybe this is important enough to blow your cover? Wonder Woman? You too. DC doesn't follow consistent world building? Get out of here. Martian Manhunter is such a destructive retcon. Why, Snyder, why? Superman's first night on the town. How does that go? Great! His public reveal is logical. Well, mostly. Entertaining, and even comedic at times. Superman mesmerizes people with his powers. Bystanders and criminals alike are blown away by what they're dealing with, and it's all executed so well. I also love how Superman provides little assurances to the people he saves to help them not be traumatized.
Well, I certainly hope this little incident hasn't put you off flying, miss. Statistically speaking, of course, it's still the safest way to travel.
Right. We also get to see how stoic, confident, charming, is that the same thing? Booming, exceptional, and inspiring Superman is, who, when compared to Clark Kent, makes people doubt the physical similarities like I mentioned earlier.
Lois, how tall would you say Clark is?
6'3", 6'4"? About 200, 215 pounds.
Superman quickly falls in love with his new public identity. Because of this new vanity he feels, he returns to the Fortress of Solitude to seek more guidance from Jor-El. Clark utilizing the fortress after his initial training shows that he doesn't have all the answers. Even Superman needs advice sometimes. This proves his humanity even stronger. The advice that Jor-El gives to Clark over why he must conceal his identity is compelling and truly reveals his wisdom for Clark's unique experience. Ah, the interview! Such an iconic movie scene. We get to see Superman and Lois's chemistry unfold in the interview scene. We are shown actual development and conversation between them. There's plenty of flirting to observe as well. Lois's flirting is not subtle, but also not direct either. The perfect balance. And that's not all. Later on, we see how much Clark cares for Lois. He truly cherishes her. Remember when we saw romantic chemistry and relationship development in Man of Steel? Because I sure don't. There's also a cool moment when Superman instantly switches to his Clark persona and then instantly switches back again to Superman. Witnessing that talent is spectacular.
I'm really... I was, at first, really...
While the plot and mechanics do everything to make Lex's plan broken and nonsensical, at least we can understand his creativity and brilliance before all that. If it wasn't for the movie breaking its own rules later on, Lex Luthor's plan is actually very well constructed and a perfect dilemma and trap for Superman. I approve. And how Lex contacts Superman through a dog whistle frequency is genius and satisfying to watch, since it affects no one else and Lex doesn't know the true identity of Superman. I want to add, this whole display of powers scene is wonderful. It's a little weird that Superman waits for all three traps instead of simply flying through, but hey, it's a neat scene for a movie like this. It also serves as a great way to define Superman's powers to the audience. His attitude is even funnier. He's very aware these traps won't affect him, and his facial expressions show the apathy, and I love it. One final unconnected point with Superman the movie. The scene where Lois is suffocating in her car? Legitimately terrifying, unlike falling from a black hole. You have to see the scene yourself to really grasp what I mean. It's honestly as if this scene was filmed separately for a suspense film or something. The tone is just completely different from the rest of the movie. Margot Kidder's acting is probably the greatest contributor to that feeling, but nonetheless, it's there. I would describe the scene as just plain dark. You really fear for her life, or your own if you're a claustrophobe. Great work, Richard Donner. Zod arrives! As he explains, Clark sent out a homing beacon by activating the old scout ship, allowing Zod and the gang to travel to his location. Does Waze work for interstellar travel? Alright, the subtleties with this pastor are hilarious. This dude is freaking out internally, but holding it all in. His heart is just racing, and you can tell he so badly wants to just say, yes, when Clark asks him this question.
If there's a chance I can save Earth by turning myself in, shouldn't I take it? I'm not sure if the people of Earth can be either.
The people of Earth? That seems like a weird way to refer to your people. Yes, that's right. Let's get into this conversation now.
On my world, it means hope.
Stop. Earth is Clark's world. Krypton is not Clark's world. He has lived his entire life on Earth. It's all he's known, just like any of you watching. To make a comparison with those of you who have lived your whole life in one area, imagine you just now found out that you weren't born in the area you grew up in. For my US viewers, let's say you learned you were born 20 states away, but your family moved a few months after you were born. Does that change your identity? If you lived in, I don't know, Denver, Colorado, your whole life, but were born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, are you now a Pennsylvanian and no longer a Coloradoan? No, that's ridiculous. You're going to fly this flag, not this one. It's absurd that Clark would identify with Krypton and see himself other than human. Yes, he knows he's Kryptonian, but he would have just as much stake and care for Earth than anyone else. He is a citizen of Earth first. This is also why Zod's little presentation to Clark for what he plans to do to Earth is preposterous. Is Zod so incredibly dense that he thinks telling Clark about genociding all of Earth will win him over? Seriously? Wait, Zack, you're not joking? He's not joking. He genuinely thinks that Zod thinks this will convince Clark to join them. What? Hey, Clark, I'm going to murder everyone you've ever loved and destroy your home. You want to help? That skull imagery is a joke. What is this movie? It goes even further with his name. His name is Clark Kent. Clark Kent, not Kal-El. Once again, think about your life. If you found out your parents had a different name for you, but, I don't know, the birth certificate was messed up, and that's how it became your actual name through life. Same concept. Clark is his identity, not Kal. He only just learned of that name 2 days ago at most. There's no way he would view himself as Kal. He's gone by Clark his whole life, and it was the only name he knew. That's why this scene from Justice League is so infuriating. Okay, so Superman lost his memory, right? he doesn't know who he is. Wonder Woman appropriately thinks it smart to try and jog his memory a bit. I'm on board so far. Get him to remember who he is so he'll stop attacking everyone. Makes sense. Until she actually starts trying.
Kal-El, no!
Kal-El? What? You're telling me that Diana thinks that Superman will get his memory back from Kal-El, which he only heard during a couple-day period of time, rather than the name he's gone by his entire life and would be able to associate hundreds of people with calling him by that? Is she insane?
Kal-El, the last son of Krypton. Remember who you are.
Son of Krypton? How about Smallville, Kansas? Or Ma and Pa Kent? What is wrong with you? Zod and gang calling him that? Fine, that makes perfect sense. Jor-El? That's fine too. But everyone else? It's Clark. Or Superman, that works too, of course. Alright, I think that covers that rant. Up next, we got Colonel Hardy being extremely unpragmatic.
Shall I tell the General you're unwilling to comply?
I don't care what you tell him.
I guess he can just speak for all of Earth, huh? Like really, calm down, bro. Okay, so this is something I don't quite understand. The movie is either not clear enough about it, or just contradicts itself for plot convenience. I'm thinking the latter is more likely. Do Clark's powers come from Earth's atmosphere or the sun? This scene only makes sense if his powers are derived from Earth's atmosphere. But if that's true, how exactly is he able to fly around and survive in space? These can't both be true. If his powers are from the sun, then the spaceflight works, but not this entire scene or scenes after. So we either break major plot points in this film, or short but crucial points in this movie and others. In the original, he gets them from the sun, which explains the many space scenes that arise. It's as if this movie wants the best of both worlds. It wants his powers from the sun so that he can fly in space, but wants them from the atmosphere so that the villains have a way to sedate Superman for Zod's presentation, and so that they can experience their powers from their masks being torn open. You can't have both though, not in the way they're established. Jor-El even implies at the beginning that the sun is where his powers originate.
Young star, his cells will drink its radiation.
Ugh, this movie conflicts with itself so much. This makes no sense whatsoever. Alright, by this point in the film, what was even the point of Jor-El dying? I mean seriously, he's basically alive with these abilities. He even gets to talk with the villain before the climax. This technology is so amazing, it's a wonder that death was even a possibility for Kryptonians. Think about it. He can meet new people, understand the current situation, give guidance for that situation, open doors on the fly, and reprogram the ship. Honestly, he's like Loki in the MCU. He just won't die. And so the damage begins. The montage I'm showing you requires an introduction. First off, you might be thinking, okay, I get it, since it'll go on for a bit. That's the point. Or the problem, I mean. That fact alone represents the outrageous amount of damage that's in this movie. Just as worse is how much Superman either could have avoided or even directly caused himself. Second, this is a terrible Superman. He's not a hero. He's stopping the bad guys, sure, but he's stopping them with such neglect over the population around him, everyone watching could just as easily think they're both bad guys and are just competing for power. Remember, this is Superman's first appearance to the world. It would be perfectly justified for someone to think he was a villain as well. If your excuse is, he's new to being Superman, that only goes so far. This level of neglect is irredeemable. I think the only reason Batman v Superman's plot is what it is because Snyder didn't account for all the destruction during this movie and saw backlash for it. He makes Superman a terrible, terrible hero. Clark holds zero disregards for the lives he's endangering, and does as a result. He should be trying his utmost best for minimal destruction and as many lives saved as he can. At every opportunity, of which there are many, he should be trying to lead the villains away from Smallville and Metropolis. Clark, get them out of here! What are you doing? By the end of this movie, I would imagine the recovery would take decades. They leveled most of Metropolis. Smallville is a small town, shocker, so that got absolutely obliterated as well. Millions of lives would have been lost if this amount of damage happened in real life. It would easily be the deadliest single event in human history. It's pathetic how little Superman tries to save lives. He does not seem to care one bit about the damage he's letting occur. Look at this! What an inspiring hero.
So anyway, later in the movie, Superman and Zod are gonna have this massive fight in Metropolis. So Clark is gonna lure Zod away from the city? No, he's gonna punch him through some buildings. Okay, but then he's gonna lure him away from the city? No, he's gonna punch him through some buildings.
This fight is just as broken as the rest of the movie. Surprise, surprise. Clark, you idiot. Why are you helping him get over it? This is the perfect way to stop him. Maybe don't tell him how to combat the overwhelming senses? Ah, he's so stupid. This fight is at the very least even, and you could argue the bad guys have the upper hand. Yeah, just one question. How? Clark has had 33 years to adjust to, learn, and practice his powers. Zod crew just got here. There is no way this would be a fair fight. Clark should be decimating them. They have lived their entire lives with bodies like our own. Not just today, they received the same abilities as Clark. That's insane. They would be so amateur. Clark should have no trouble winning. At least the Zod Squad and Superman 2 took time to learn their powers, even if it was short-lived. Clark, this is what I was talking about. Why are you fighting the big dude when this lady is slaughtering all of these soldiers? Maybe, just maybe, she should be your higher priority target at the moment? Hey, did Marvel copy this? Real talk here. This may be the worst choice any Superman has ever made, ever. I have watched this scene over and over, listening intently in case I was missing something, and I cannot find a solution. So here's the plan. There are two machines required to terraform Earth, the World Engine and Zod's ship. The Air Force is going to target Zod's ship, which is hovering over Metropolis, killing millions of people. Their goal is to crash into Zod's ship with the ship that Clark arrived on Earth in because it'll create a black hole, effectively destroying the ship. Meanwhile, Clark is going to destroy the World Engine, which is in a remote area of the Indian Ocean, not bringing harm to any people. Why is Clark going after the World Engine? How on earth did any of you agree to this plan? Clark should be the one to go after Zod's ship because he can destroy it just by flying through the thing, and that's the machine that is killing millions. Go after that one first. Who cares about the World Engine? Both machines need to be operating to work. As long as either one is down, the terraforming halts. By these mechanics, you should prioritize the one over Metropolis. What is wrong with you? What is this movie? Zack Snyder wanted death and destruction so bad he threw out the plot. If I am missing a crucial detail here, please let me know in the comments. I really have looked through the movie because I knew how embarrassing this rant would be if it wasn't accurate. So I did the homework necessary to ensure it was. It's still not impossible I missed a solution though, but I'm pretty confident I didn't. Either way, this movie still sucks. Ugh, and the amount of time he spends dealing with the World Engine. So many people didn't have to die. It gets worse still. The World Engine was the one that had the effects of Krypton, another loss for the space fight. This means that Clark also chose to go after the only one that made him weaker. The US Air Force wouldn't be affected. They're human and in jets. So not only has Clark gone after the lesser priority, he went after the one he's less effective against. Wonderful. Adding on to the time he wastes over there while people die over here. What a hero.
If you destroy this ship, you destroy Krypton! Krypton had its chance!
Krypton had its chance? Yet another example of something that Clark would never say. Instead of saying something along the lines of, Krypton shouldn't be reborn this way, or Earth will not pay because of your methods. He refers to the unborn Kryptonians as if all of this is their fault. This is Zod's doing, not Krypton's. Krypton had its chance? What an apathetic jerk.
We could have built a new Krypton in this squalor, but you chose the humans over us.
Duh. Why wouldn't he? Is Zod this delusional? Must I remind you about Earth being Clark's home? In all ways except physical, Clark is human. These are his people. Zod. General Zod. Let's talk about him for a bit, shall we? Before we move forward, I need to get something important out of the way. This is in no way a gripe against Michael Shannon. This is about the material he was given. In other words, the script, the writing. My thoughts about the character of Zod do not reflect those of the actor portraying him. Quite the opposite. I think Michael Shannon does an outstanding job in this film. He puts a lot of energy into the role, and you can just tell he's into it. I think he's a great fit as Zod. No complaints acting-wise.
I will find him!
Okay, maybe that specific line delivery, but for all we know, that was a directorial request rather than an artistic choice by the actor. We don't know either way, but there's room to not blame Michael Shannon there. Now that I got that out of the way, let us proceed. Long ago, at the start of this video, do you recall that I would briefly reference and compare Superman 2 from 1980 as well? Well, here it is. The reason being, of course, is because Zod Squad are the baddies in that movie. This leaves us with a great opportunity to compare. In Superman 2, Zod, Ursa, and Non are all intrigued by their powers when they arrive in the solar system. Yes, you heard that right. Not Earth yet, because they gain their powers from the young yellow star. Anyway, since they have malicious intent, they are enamored by these newfound abilities and embrace them. They understand the power it gives them over humans, like in this scene on the moon. They're toying with the astronauts for two reasons. Because they think it's fun, since they're evil, but also so they can test their new powers. And they don't stop testing. Almost their entire time on Earth is spent roaming and, through experimentation, gaining new abilities by pushing the limit of their powers. These scenes, while slow at times, reveal competency in our villains and grounds their experience, as opposed to immediately being a pro at brand new godly abilities. These scenes are great as a result, especially the moon scene. Even though they're technically different characters, since they don't share names, I appreciate how the archetype is kept through the crew. Ursa is essentially the same as Feora, and Non is essentially the same as Tor. And just as Michael Shannon, Terrence Stamp portrays Zod amazingly. He too puts so much energy and passion into the role, and it shows. Both Zod actors do a tremendous job. It's just unfortunate that the action is not nearly as entertaining as it is in Man of Steel. It doesn't hold up. Superman 2 Zod's plan, while cliche, is at least logical. What's Man of Steel Zod's plan? He wants to terraform Earth so it'll be like Krypton, and then, using the Codex, he'll birth new Kryptonians and restart their civilization with him as ruler. Right, so why does he want to terraform exactly? It was established by Jor-El that Krypton was a more dangerous planet than Earth. He described it as
a much harsher environment than Earth's.
If Earth is already safer than Krypton was, why not keep it the way it is? How do you conclude this is a better plan? Also, I'm only saying this because Zod is evil, but you could enslave the humans instead of just killing them all. No? He's not that evil, you say? You're right, genocide is much nobler. The other thing, even though it's a worse mechanic, there is much more that supports that their powers come from the atmosphere. Unfortunately, that is what I must go off of then. With that said, just as it was happening to Clark at the World Engine, why would you want to terraform when it means losing your powers? You are gods among men. You have abilities beyond compare. You are willingly giving those up? Why? You could have your new Kryptonian species be of all super beings dominating over the humans. Zod, how is this a better plan in any way? Why are you such an awful villain? Just use your brain, please. Just as his sidekicks did, Zod takes control of his powers in seconds. Clark has lived on Earth for 33 years and still struggled with many, if not all, of his powers. Not Zod, though. Oh no. Literally being able to fly? Easy. No practice necessary. He instantly masters it. Overwhelming super hearing and X-ray vision? Well, you see, he focused for 2 seconds, so that wasn't an obstacle either. It's laughable how ridiculous this is. That whole natural birth thing must have made Clark weak. It took him 3 decades to accomplish what Zod Squad did in seconds. How lame is Superman, am I right?
I exist only to protect Krypton. That is the sole purpose for which I was born. And now, I have no people. My soul. That is what you have taken from me.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let me get this straight. Was that a Freudian slip that Zod just said? Are you telling me that Zod wasn't doing all this for Krypton and its survival? He was doing it for himself? For his purpose? His motivations just got destroyed? And explain to me how one has no purpose just because they were bred to protect Krypton. You really can't do anything else like Clark. It was Krypton or nothing, huh? You were genetically engineered to commit atrocities in the name of Krypton? Fantastic character writing, I must say. The infamous finale. The scene that, for some reason, is controversial among Superman fans. Not sure why, it was blatantly obvious that killing Zod was the best and safest choice. What else could he do? He doesn't exactly have a way to imprison him. And don't give me the whole, but he's the last Kryptonian business. Clark thought he was the last Kryptonian after he met Jor-El in the scout ship. Based on this line,
Krypton had its chance!
I'd say he doesn't care about reviving the species. And once again, Zod is a mass murderer who needs to be stopped. I'm not sure conservation is something to be considered here. That excuse doesn't fly.
So how does the movie end? Well, Zod is about to use his heat vision to kill a family, so Superman has to stop him before he does. So he grabs him and flies away with him? No. He uses super speed to get the family out of the way? No, sir, he doesn't. He steps in front of the blast and takes the hit himself? No, he breaks Zod's neck. What? Yeah, and then he screams because he's so upset that he had to do that. Feels like there were a lot of other options, though. Whoops, whoopsie.
Besides that, this scene is bad for other reasons. I'm not sure why Superman hasn't already killed him, but I digress. Is Zod just not able to move his eyes? He should have no trouble killing these people. Clark is restraining his head, sure, but not his eyes. Just move them. I also don't know why these people ran this way in the first place and why they can't just leave as soon as the lasers start. Look at all this space. Just go. It's equally as stupid that Clark is so upset at killing Zod, but he didn't show this grief over the millions of people he let die. Snyder really understands Superman, I can tell. We don't understand. It's dark and edgy. Cool. That changes nothing. To end with a positive, I thought the reasoning for why Clark chooses to work at the Daily Planet was a nice touch. It was good reasoning. Though it felt a bit odd that he only starts there after he was Superman, but whatever. That's all, folks. This was the longest video on my channel. I am never doing a video of this length again. Keep expecting the length you've been seeing from my channel. I was quite passionate about this one if you couldn't tell. It's because of my love for the character. It's the same deal with something like Star Wars or post-Endgame Marvel. I hate the sequel trilogy as much as I do because I love the originals so much. Otherwise, they would just be some random bad movies. I don't even want to mention Loki. I think Snyder did Superman fans dirty with the DCEU. His 3 movies are atrocious. Record scratch. 3, you ask? Perhaps that discussion is for another time.
A good question. For another time.
But if you do want insight from someone with more talent than me, and you are genuinely open-minded about hearing such a spicy take, please check out the Snyder Cut video in the description. I don't feel like going through that movie myself. That would surpass this video for sure. Plus, the other video does it justice. Every pun intended. Just a reminder, if you didn't see part 1 of this 2-part series, that is also in the description. Man, I'm setting records. My longest video has the longest description. Longest title? Ah, no. Anyway, if you actually stayed this long, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it more than you know. This was quite a video to get through, I can imagine. I would know, I've seen it multiple times, because I had to make sure the finished product turned out well, not because I wanted to hear myself talk. For a few of my viewers, this was my most anticipated video, so I hope it didn't disappoint. As always, I am so thankful for your support and dedication. I put a lot of effort into these videos, so it's nice to see people like them. I'm sorry this video took so long to release. It was seriously almost 2 months after my last. That should not happen again. I, unfortunately, got super busy. I still am, so I can't promise a consistent upload schedule, but with much shorter videos and me not being as busy as I was during the production of this video, you should start seeing them somewhat normally again. If you thought Man of Steel was a great movie before this video, I hope I showed you a different perspective. You can happily enjoy the action and punch fest, just don't tell me the plot makes any sense or that Clark and/or Jonathan are good people. I don't doubt I still missed some critiques, but I think I did a good enough job to make my argument. With this long outro, I finally bid you adieu. Blue Sky Beam! Thanks for watching my video. If you enjoy my content, consider following any or all of the actions on the screen. All links are in the description below. I truly appreciate your support. Until next time, hobos.